Chapter 1. Flying to Brazil. I'm glad that the Spock TV producers set up a virtual chat room for the winners of the contest, said Nayara happily. The young girl sat back in her seat. This way we've gotten to know each other a little bit before the trip. Can you imagine? What if we'd only met right now at the airport? Too strange. One of her two friends, a Japanese guy called Yoshi, answered, Yeah, Nayara, you're right. After all, we're going to spend a whole month together. We're going to be traveling to different cities to make the Expedition Brazil documentary. Ah, Yoshi, I knew we'd get to know each other so well in the virtual world that by the time we met in the real world, we'd be like old friends. And I was right, Gunnar, the third guy added. I know, Gunnar. After all, we already know so much about each other's lives, our families and dreams. You all know that I want to be a photographer and a movie director, that I live in Tokyo, and that I have a sister. And you know about my life in Oslo, Gunnar replied. You know that I have 3 younger brothers who love to bug me, but love to hear me play. They think it's great that I want to be a musician. Well, I think I was the one who spoke most in the chat. I love to talk. I love stories. It's no surprise that I want to be a writer. It's been a dream of mine, since the days when my granddaddy used to tell me stories when I was little, said Nayara. One thing I like is that we won't be going to Brazil separately. I thought it was great that the Spock TV team joined us in your country, Nayara, and that we all left together. Can you imagine each of us flying alone for hours, thinking about what was going to happen? Whoa, Yoshi, you're the most zen of us. Did you really think you were going to worry about the trip? Can you imagine what Gunnar and I would feel like? I guess we'd have a nervous breakdown, added Nayara. Everyone burst out laughing. They laughed and laughed. And then the 3 friends carried on talking, taking turns. They talked about all sorts of different things. Anyone who saw that close young group of 3 would think that they had known each other since they were children. But that wasn't true. The 3 had only known each other a little over a month, the time they had had to organize for the trip. Nayara, Gunnar, and Yoshi had won the contest A Look at Brazil, set up by the Brazilian channel Spock TV. The people taking part had entered in one of 3 areas: video, text, or music. The prize for each area was a trip to a few Brazilian cities to produce a documentary about Brazil. Then, each entrant had sent in a video, text, or piece of music about Brazil. The aim of the contest was to find the people who could best capture the spirit of the country. Nayara was the winner for her writing. Gunnar had won with his music, and Yoshi had made the winning video. The only requirements had been that they spoke English fluently, so they could communicate during the production of the documentary, and that they knew a little Portuguese and something about Brazilian culture. Of the 3, Nayara is the only one who speaks Portuguese fluently, because after all, she was born in Mozambique, one of the countries of the Portuguese-speaking community. Gunnar and Yoshi both love Brazil and know some Portuguese words and expressions. All of them, however, still have a lot of trouble understanding the geography of the country. At that moment, all 3 of them were looking at the open map of Brazil, marking the cities that they would visit and beginning to understand just how big Brazil is. It wouldn't be possible to see even half of what they wanted to. Guys, do you remember what Nanda said? Brazil is divided into 5 regions, is that right? And each region has several states, and each state has lots of counties and cities. That's right, Nayara. It's kind of difficult, isn't it? I guess we'll understand everything better when we get there. It's a shame that we won't get to visit all the regions. A real shame, Yoshi. We'll just have to visit Brazil a few more times. We haven't even arrived, and you're already talking about going back, said Gunnar. The three burst out laughing again. After our chats, I did a little bit of research about the cities that we're going to visit. We're going to have so much fun. After all, it's going to be so different from our cultures. Especially yours, Yoshi. Researching the cities that we're visiting is so you, said Nyara. Don't pick on me. What's the problem? I like to research things. Anyway, you'll be interested in what I found out. Everything is different in each of those places. The music, the food, and the traditions, said Yoshi. I know. I can't wait to see it all. Can you imagine writing about those beautiful things? Added Nyara. And what about writing music in those places? Said Gunnar. And coming up with a soundtrack for the documentary. And what about filming it all and taking pictures? Added Yoshi. It's going to be magical, I'm sure. Nyara smiled and hugged her new friends. It was another magical moment, but the flight was long, and soon the three went to sleep very tired. Their heads rested on each other's shoulders, as if they had always been friends. When Nyara, Yoshi, and Gunnar arrived in Sao Paulo, a team from Spock TV was waiting for them at the airport. Nanda, the producer, Kawe, the presenter of the TV show, How Much Do You Really Know About Brazil? Hugo, the cameraman, and Miriam, the boss of Spock TV. Well, everyone, welcome to Brazil, said Miriam, smiling. This is the team that will be with you. Nanda, Kawe, and Hugo are going to be in the same hotel in Sao Paulo to make sure that everything works out fine. So let's go. You guys must be really excited to see Brazil. Your trip's going to be full of surprises for sure. And when are we going to get to see Rio de Janeiro, Miriam? Well, Gunnar, you'll have to be patient. Rio will be the last city that you get to see. But come on, you don't have much time, and there are so many places to see. From the moment they left the airport until they arrived at the hotel, everything was filmed and photographed. After all, they needed to record everything. Absolutely everything was going to be recorded during this trip. The three friends looked excitedly out of the van windows. They went up Paulista Avenue, and Miriam explained how important the main avenue was. She told them that the financial center of the city and country was there. She talked about the buildings, showing them where a few consulates were. She pointed out the Museum of Art of Sao Paulo, the famous MASP, and while they talked excitedly about the itinerary, Yoshi looked around at all the fantastic street art. He found it beautiful. Hugo explained that there was some really neat graffiti in several parts of the city, and if Yoshi wanted to film or photograph some of it, they could include that in the itinerary. Yoshi had already heard about the Gêmeos, twin brothers who were graffiti artists from Sao Paulo. Hugo promised to take them to photograph the best street art in the city. He wanted them to understand the poetry of the walls, or, like a friend of Hugo's said, understand the walls that speak. They decided to do that right away, but first they had to leave the suitcases at the hotel and visit the Spock TV head office. Get ready, everyone. This is going to be one busy month, said Miriam. The next day, everyone got up early. They were going to visit the Museum of the Portuguese Language, so they stopped by Estácio da Luz, the train station. The three friends were very impressed with some of the buildings at the station. Copies of Big Ben and Westminster Abbey built with materials brought over from England. This time, Nyara was the most impressed. She was thinking about stories. So many interesting things must have happened in that train station, when trains were the main means of transportation for the local population. They left the station, but Kawe had to go back to get Nyara, who seemed to be daydreaming. "Hey, you! What are you thinking about? We've been calling you for over 5 minutes and you didn't hear us," Kawe said, smiling. "Really? I was miles away. I was thinking about so many things, so many stories." "If this place did that to you, just wait till we get into the Museum of the Portuguese Language. You're going to love it, especially because you speak Portuguese." Gunnar and Yoshi saw Nyara and Kawe talking excitedly as they walked toward them, and they both felt a little jealous. They had never talked about it, but they both thought Nyara was beautiful. When they arrived at the museum, Hugo asked, "Yoshi, do you have your camera ready? It's important to record as much as possible. We can edit everything later, so don't worry. And I'm going to record the behind-the-scenes action, everything you do." "Nyara and Gunnar, don't forget that you need to let us know everything that you want Yoshi or Hugo to film or photograph, because we need to get everything. We're not coming back to any of these places, okay?" Nanda warned. Chapter 2: Sao Paulo and its Surprises. They walked around the 3 floors of the Museum of the Portuguese Language. The 3 friends were open-mouthed, each for different reasons. For Nyara, it was because the various exhibitions were in her own language. For Gunnar and Yoshi, it was because of the surprising sounds, projections, and installations, wonderful expressions of art. Everything was new. The language, so familiar to Nyara, was very difficult for the others, and for Yoshi in particular. In the Language Plaza, a sort of language planetarium with projected images and sounds, the 3 were amazed. All they could do was feel the emotions that the place awakened in them. It was so simple, and at the same time, so strong and deep. The sounds of the language were so beautiful. The room was dark, and the 3 friends sat together, Gunnar on the right, Yoshi on the left, and Nyara in the middle. Nyara felt the light touch of Gunnar's hand on her right hand, and incredibly, at the same time, Yoshi's hand touched her left hand. It was a very special moment. The link between Gunnar, Yoshi, and Nyara was so strong. As soon as they left the room, Nyara wrote something in the notebook she had been given by the producers. Then she said, "Yoshi, before we leave, I want you to record something. Gunnar, do you remember that music that you were whistling last night?" "Yeah, why?" "Because I want it to be the soundtrack for something I am going to read right here at the entrance of the Museum of the Portuguese Language." And Nyara read, while Gunnar whistled, and Yoshi got some great film of everything. "This homeland is not mine, but this language is. These hands are not mine, but they touch me without realizing it. None of this belongs to me, but it is all part of me. Mysteries." Afterward, everyone returned to the van. It was lunchtime, so they went to a restaurant. The 3 friends were silent. Only Nanda and Kawe kept the conversation going. Hugo realized that there was something strange going on. Young people stuff, he thought, since he was the oldest in the crew. Nanda and Kawe were some 6 or 7 years younger than he was. The silence didn't last long because, while they were eating, Nanda described everything that they were going to do that day. She told them they were going to MASP and to Ibirapuera Park. Then, at night, she said, they would have dinner at a nice local pizzeria. When they arrived at MASP, there was a show going on, as often happens at lunchtime. This time, Gunnar got emotional as he imagined himself playing there with his band. The band was still coming together, but he was already dreaming of how successful it was going to be in Brazil. Wow, this space is awesome! Gunnar was looking at the large open space under the museum. It's huge, isn't it? Said Kawe. I've recorded a few shows here. This place is just great. There's a street market here Sundays, but before you ask if we can come, we can't. Sorry, Nayara. By Sunday, we'll be far away from here. But just imagine skating here. It must be great, said Yoshi. Well, enjoy it now, because from here, we have to go to Ibirapuera. And tomorrow, we're going to see the football museum, the one you talked about so much in your emails, remember? How could they forget? They would also never forget anything they saw at Ibirapuera Park. Nayara, Gunnar, and Yoshi were very impressed by the size of the park, with its museums and huge open area. That afternoon, Yoshi took more than 200 photos. He filmed Gunnar playing his guitar under a beautiful tree and photographed Nayara from all sides. Gunnar, Nayara, Nanda, and Kawe decided to go on a bike ride. Each rented one and went around the park, while Hugo and Yoshi recorded everything. Afterward, Nayara, Yoshi, and Gunnar joined a group of young skaters. Not all of the skaters spoke English, so Nayara started to explain in Portuguese why they were all there. They interviewed the skaters while Yoshi recorded everything. Later, he went around on a skateboard he borrowed from a young girl, who was the best skater he had ever seen. It was an incredible afternoon. The day was beautiful, and the three friends hardly noticed that it was a little cold. After all, it was winter in Brazil. They didn't even notice how easily they became part of the Brazilian group, or how fast time went by. After a short while, they were all sitting under a tree playing the guitar. Gunnar played his favorite Norwegian songs and learned to play a few Brazilian songs. Before leaving, Nayara wanted to slackline with a group practicing close by. In no time, she was part of the group. And that was the day. Music, photos, interviews, and the usual conversations between young people from such different countries. And all this took place in an incredible park in the middle of a huge urban center. Another thing they noticed was young people on dates everywhere in the park, holding hands as they walked under the trees. The three friends sighed. It would be so easy to fall in love here in beautiful, beautiful Brazil. The next day was so exciting. Gunnar, Yoshi, and Nayara were really looking forward to visiting the Paulo Machado de Carvalho Municipal Stadium, better known as the Pacaembu Stadium. It's the home of the Football Museum, a completely interactive museum with incredible exhibits and guided tours. It's so much more than a museum about the history of football. It's a museum about the history of the Brazilian people, football, and life, all their pain and happiness. Football is a great expression of Brazilian culture. It's a sport that unites all people of different cultures, religions, and social classes. And it mixes emotion, history, and entertainment too. A sport packed with excitement, able to fill so many stadiums, all on the same day. Nanda bought football jerseys for each of them. The friends chose the team jerseys they wanted themselves, and Nanda also gave each of them a Brazilian national team jersey. It was yet another strange thing, but each of them chose to wear the Brazilian national team jersey later that day, although they hadn't discussed it. The most important moment of the afternoon could not be recorded, photographed, set to music, or written about, except inside each of them. The three friends, with their eyes closed, hugged. They felt the rhythms of that place, feeling the music playing deep inside them, the text being written in their hearts, and the photos taken in their minds. Only Hugo realized what was happening, but he saw it from the outside. He filmed it, although he had no idea of the emotions Nyara, Gunnar, and Yoshi were feeling. They were all still feeling emotional as they packed their suitcases, ready to leave the next day. Next destination? The federal capital of Brazil. Chapter 3. Brasilia, a planned capital. When the group arrived at the airport of Brasilia, it was late afternoon. In the morning, they had stayed in Sao Paulo, visiting the Rock Galleria. Gunnar wanted to see it because it was a famous center for rock and roll. He bought several band t-shirts and a cap that was fantastic, or so his friends said. They left Brasilia Airport and headed for the hotel. They thought the landscape looked a little strange. They had traveled through some of the country and arrived at a totally different place, an open city. "Aren't there any big buildings here, like on Paulista Avenue?" Nyara asked. But before Nanda could answer, Yoshi suddenly shouted. Everyone was surprised because he was usually so quietly spoken and polite. "Hugo, bring the camera, quickly, please. What is that? Awesome! Look at that!" Hugo did what he could, but he wasn't able to record the exact moment when Yoshi saw the sunset. "The sunset is fantastic this time of year here in Brasilia, Yoshi. It's the dry season, and you often see people setting up their cameras and waiting to photograph sunsets like this. It's so beautiful, as you just saw. One of the days here, we'll wait for it, okay? That way you can take a photo or maybe record a video while Nyara tells a story or reads something. And Gunnar, can you think of a soundtrack for that moment, seeing that you already saw it today?" "Good idea, Nanda," said Gunnar. "But today we aren't doing much," continued Hugo. "We're going to leave things in the hotel and go out for dinner, because tomorrow's going to be a really busy day." The next day, they woke up early and talked excitedly at breakfast. "You know what, Cauê? I was really amazed when we stopped at that restaurant by the Paranoá Lake yesterday. The sky there is incredible. First, I thought it was because we were in a desert, but afterward, when we were coming back to the hotel, I realized it wasn't that, because everywhere we went we could see the sky. It was great." "I can't believe it. I mean, we're in the capital of the country, aren't we?" said Yoshi. "Yeah, you're right. But you know, Yoshi, there are many things in this city that are going to amaze you. The sky is one of the things that I love the most about Brasilia. It's beautiful. This open sky is huge. It makes us feel closer to the stars, even though we're in a large city. But Brasilia was planned. Everything here is man-made, including the Paranoá Lake, which surrounds the Plano Pilato. I don't think you guys knew that, did you?" "We didn't. Incredible, Cauê. Everything planned," said Yoshi. "It's really strange. A completely planned city." "Yes, Gunnar, a planned city. And there are so many legends about how Brasilia was built and about why this place was chosen for the capital. But that's a long story. We need to find someone here to tell us, because I don't know the whole story. With a little luck, we'll find someone. Let's see, said Kawe. Another amazing thing about this place is the architecture. The buildings are bold and really different, said Hugo. Most of them were designed by Oscar Niemeyer. He was a famous Brazilian architect. That's enough talking. Let's go see. The TV tower is waiting for us, said Nanda. Yes, ma'am, said Nyara, Yoshi, and Gunnar at exactly the same time, picking on Nanda. On the way to the TV tower, Kawe continued to talk about Brasilia. He told them that the planners built it so that it would always stay the same shape. And because it was planned, there were height limits for its buildings. Housing blocks can't have more than 6 floors. That's why everyone who lives there has a wonderful view of the skyline. He also said that, from the top of the tower, it was possible to see that the Earth really is round. When they arrived at the top of the tower, they were amazed. It was all true. They could see for miles and miles around. I'll explain so you can understand the geography of the city a little better. Look down there. What shape can you see? Asked Kawe. Well, it looks like a plane, Kawe, said Yoshi. You got it, Yoshi. Wow, how did you see that so fast? Said Nyara. He's very clever, Nyara. It's a Japanese thing. Yoshi smiled. But he's right. Brasilia was built in the shape of a plane. The body of the plane is called the monumental axis, because that's where you find the monuments to the power of the Federal District and of Brazil. Across the body of the plane, we have 2 wings. There, can you see? Asked Kawe. Everyone nodded. Well, that's where most people live. Businesses, schools, and hospitals are all there too. Look over there. Wow, it's incredible, Kawe, said Gunnar, amazed. Yes, Gunnar, but there's something Kawe hasn't told you, said Hugo. Here in Brasilia, it's easy to find where you are, because there are 2 wings, the south wing and the north wing. The south wing points south, and so, if you face the north wing, you'll be facing north. Hugo paused for a moment. Okay, now, in the lower part of the plane, just there, he pointed, we have the L2. That's a road that runs across both north and south wings. The L stands for leste, or east in Portuguese. On the upper side, west, we have another road, W3, which also runs across the plain from north to south. Can you see it? Again, the friends nodded. Nanda also had something to add. And in the body of the plane, where the monumental axis is, you find the federal government buildings on the west. That's the upper side. So that's where the government palace is, along with the Palace of Justice and the State Departments. In the lower part of this axis, you find the national powers, the ministries, the Palácio do Planalto, the headquarters of the Brazilian government, the Justice Palace, the Itamaraty Palace, and the National Congress. Wow, so many things, Nanda. Yes, Yoshi, many things. It's very difficult to take in everything. But that's enough about politics. Let's take this opportunity to understand the fantastic geography of the city. We're going to visit all these places so you can see them, take pictures, and film them. We're also going to see the cathedral, which is beautiful. Ah, Nanda, you haven't told Gunnar what we're going to do tonight, said Hugo. No, I haven't. It's a surprise. Ah, that's not cool, Nanda. Tell me, please, said Gunnar. I want to know too, Nanda. Tell us, come on, shouted Nyara. No, it will be a surprise for the three of you. But before we go back down, I wanted to let you know something else, just so that you understand where we are at the moment. A little above where the monumental axis and the south and north wings meet is where the TV tower is, and that's where we are now. It's great to be here so we can tell you these stories, and you can see the shape of the plane, the shape of Brasilia perfectly. It's so nice of you, said Nyara, giving Nanda a hug. That afternoon, they took pictures in several parts of the city. They were just as impressed with the geography of the city when they were on the ground. It wasn't like Sao Paulo at all. It was very easy to get around, even by car. They thought the way the city was divided in areas and blocks was very interesting. But the three friends were excited all afternoon, wondering what Nanda's surprise was going to be. They all really wanted to know, but no one asked again. When they got back to the hotel, they showered quickly, had something to eat, and hurried out to find out what their surprise was. They traveled through the city in the van until they got to the Paranoá Lake area. There you go, my dear friends, said Hugo happily. Here we are. Get ready for a typical night in Brasilia at a show outdoors. We're at the South Lake. Do you see that big screen and that stage? That's where we're going. Today, Gunnar, 3 completely different Brazilian bands are going to play. You will get to know a few Brazilian rhythms. It's going to be a really interesting mix. From rock to sertanejo universitario. Wow, I can't believe it. I thought we would just visit touristy places, said Gunnar. Not at all, my friend. You need to see the real Brazil. Just wait until you see Rio de Janeiro. Chapter 4. Pantanal and its charms, stories, and legends. Music still ringing in their ears, the Spock TV team left Brasilia and headed to Pantanal in the state of Mato Grosso. They arrived at Cuiabá Airport, and from there they went to Pantanal by car. Nanda was keen to explain. Get ready, guys. What you are about to see now is different from everything that we have seen until now. We're on our way to Chicuraré Bay in Barão Malgaço, around 121 kilometers from where we are now. Like everything else in Brazil, Pantanal is real big. We picked this bay because it's the largest. It's 64 kilometers long by 16 kilometers wide. We also think it's the most beautiful bay. Sounds great, Nanda, said Nyara. But there's something I don't understand. Here in Cuiabá, it's so hot today. But it's winter in Brazil. What's going on? Ah, Nyara, here in Brazil, everything is very different from the weather you're used to. It's hot almost all year round in Cuiabá. And I mean hot. After all, we're right in the middle of South America. Also, if we were to go to the Northeast, you would find very high temperatures even in the winter. Nanda paused for a moment. It's a shame we can't visit that region this time. You'd love some of the cities in the Northeast. From what I know of you all, Yoshi would love to see the island of the red sand. It's incredible. A sandbank over 2 kilometers long that you can see at low tide. It's in the county of Cabedelo, in the state of Paraíba. It is the same thing with the coral reefs at Picauzinho in Tambaú. Yes, I think you'll have to come back." "Wow, Nanda, I would love to see those places," said Yoshi. "But I also saw a few pictures of a place that I showed to Gunnar and Nyara that I thought looked awesome. Jericho Aquara. It's in Ceará, right?" "That's right, Yoshi. We recorded a show there a few months ago. It's a very beautiful place. It has the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen," said Nanda. Nyara, Yoshi, and Gunnar were more and more impressed with just how many different things there were in Brazil. They carried on with the trip, talking about other places they would not have time to see, at least on this visit to Brazil. That's when Cauê started to explain a few things about Pantanal.
Everyone thinks Pantanal's a swamp, but it isn't. It's actually a large area of wetlands. It's one of the richest wetland areas in the world. It's also the largest continuously flooded area on the planet. It covers around 7% of the total area of Mato Grosso. We're really proud of it. And in the year 2000, UNESCO made Pantanal a World Natural Heritage Site. It's so amazing. There's a fantastic variety of wildlife in this region. There are around 260 types of fish, 650 birds, 100 warm-blooded animals, 50 reptiles, and 1,100 butterflies. Can you imagine? "I'm gonna tell you something. I think I want to live in Brazil," said Gunnar, and everyone burst out laughing. "And you haven't seen much yet. Imagine what you'll feel like after you've seen everything we're going to visit. Then you're really going to want to stay here," said Cauê. They soon arrived at the eco-friendly hostel, the simple hotel where they were going to stay while they were in Pantanal. The three friends didn't rest up for a minute. They really wanted to see the Chacuraré Bay, as they knew it was a mysterious place full of legends and stories. But what Nyara found the most interesting was that Chacuraré was heart-shaped. She was sure that a bay in the shape of a heart would have lots of stories and legends to share. She wanted to hear them all. The days they spent in Pantanal were days of pure emotion and wonder. They explored the trails around the hostel, horseback riding through the thick forest over little streams and flooded fields. They traveled around in a jeep at night so they could watch the behavior of nighttime animals. They went on boat trips so they could see the local flora and fauna, and they took canoes through the flooded fields. Yoshi loved the photographic safari that they did on the Mutum River, an unusually beautiful river. Gunnar really liked the walk they did one day when they left the hostel early in the morning to see the sunrise and watch the wildlife in Pantanal waking up. Nyara really enjoyed getting to know Mr. Generoso, the best storyteller in the region. They went on a horseback ride with Mr. Generoso because he wanted to show them a special place in Chacuraré. They rode for a while and went across a river when Mr. Generoso pointed out the place he wanted them to stop. They got off the horses and sat down underneath an extremely beautiful tree, very close to the river. That's when Mr. Generoso started to tell a story. The Chacuraré Bay has another old name, the Xerayes Sea. The name Chacuraré comes from the local Bororo name, Acoraré. It means a place where people can hunt and fish for food. Usually the bay is calm, but sometimes Chacuraré gets mad and she shows it with waves. She, because we call her the Lady of the Waters. This world is full of sea life, and local people think the water has magic powers. When a fisherman or a swimmer makes a lot of noise, the waters get upset and they make big, big waves. If you shout,
you can make magical beings come out of the lake. The legend says that when there's some sort of noise, the waters of the bay change color too. They become darker when the big waves form. Wow, Mr. Generoso! Can we make that happen? If we make a lot of noise now, will the waves get bigger? Asked Nyara. Well, it usually happens later in the day, early in the evening. But as I said, Shakura Ray is magical. Here, anything is possible. Suddenly, they heard a noise coming from the trees. At the exact same moment, Nyara felt something cold on her back and shouted. Of course, she was sure that it was the waters of the bay, upset by the noise. She could almost see magical beings. Nanda, Hugo, Kawe, and Yoshi jumped up, trying to understand what was going on. Then they realized that Gunnar wasn't there. Only Mr. Generoso had seen Gunnar climb the tree. From up there, he had thrown some water onto Nyara to play a trick on her. She'd been so excited about the story. When they realized what had happened, they all burst out laughing. But just like any good storyteller, Mr. Generoso had a warning for them. Gunnar, you shouldn't joke about these legends. There are things you don't understand here. The waters of Shakura Ray have a very long memory, and they'll remember what you did just now. Be careful, or the waters will get you. Gunnar was silent and a little scared. He remembered that their last night there would be a Pantanal music show, right on the banks of the river. But Mr. Generoso was a very smart man. He changed the subject and talked about the terrible dry weather at the bay a few years ago. Then there had been no rain for months and very little water. But the bay had recovered, and it was beautiful once again. On the last night in Pantanal, the people at the hostel organized their music night with local guitar players. The rhythm really spoke to Gunnar. It was incredible. The guitar players played beautiful songs which he had never heard before. They sang about love and the past. The light from the fire was magical, and everyone was sitting around it. Nanda put her head on Kawe's shoulder, and Nyara put hers on Yoshi's. It was quite romantic. When Gunnar saw the scene, he stopped listening to the music. "Hey, Yoshi," he said, "take some pictures of the circle of guitar players. You haven't taken any pictures at all tonight." "Ah, Gunnar, don't bug me. Hugo can do it. I'm feeling lazy." "I'm not asking, Hugo. After all, we came here to record these moments, didn't we?" said Gunnar. Yoshi eventually got up, and luckily he was able to capture Gunnar's scared expression the moment a sudden wind picked up his guitar and blew it far away. That's when one of the guitar players said, "Hey, little boy, when the wind takes your guitar like that, it's because for some reason you woke up the enchanted serpent that lives in the Shakura Ray Bay. Now you are linked to this place forever. You can go back home, but this place will always be in your heart." Chapter 5. The Amazon Rainforest, Secrets and Mysteries. It was a very special moment when the three friends arrived at the wild, beautiful Amazon rainforest. The three had never seen anything like it. They traveled for about 50 kilometers on a boat to their hotel in the middle of the forest. The hotel was an important place, carefully planned so that tourism was sustainable. It was incredible and had been specially built so that people could stay all year round, both in the floods and in the dry season. The size of the Black River really impressed the group. At several points, it was like sailing on the ocean, as they couldn't see either bank of the river.
Wow, I feel like I'm in the heart of the forest, said Gunnar. And listen, what can you hear? Listen to it. That's the music of nature. Close your eyes, Nyara. Now feel it. Can you feel that sound in your heart?
Nyara closed her eyes, and she felt it. She felt the birds singing, leaves falling, the water running, and there were other sounds she didn't know. Yoshi was totally silent. He was enjoying the moment in his heart. He didn't even know what to photograph because he had never seen so much natural beauty in his life. Hugo filmed everything, and everything the three did was recorded, while Kawe did the talkover on Expedition Brazil. Nanda had organized everything. The Amazon rainforest left a deep impression on the hearts of Nyara, Yoshi, and Gunnar. The next day, they were able to see the homes of the Amerindians who live in the region. A wonderful experience. Mrs. Geranina, a wise storyteller from the forest, had a warning for Nyara. Look, you're a beautiful young girl, and you need to understand something about this place. You must watch out for the river dolphins. What I'm about to tell you usually happens at night during the festivals in June, but it also happens during the festivals in July. On these nights, the river dolphins come out of the water and turn into handsome young men. I mean really handsome. They wear white suits and hats so girls can't see their heads. River dolphins are smart, and they know they have to leave before the sun comes up. If a young man in a white suit asks you to dance, you must run away from him. Dolphins are really good talkers, you know. Many young girls have disappeared. The dolphins take them to the bottom of the river, and they are never seen again. So be careful, my lovely young friend. Keep away from the river dolphins at nighttime. Swimming close to the river dolphins was the most amazing experience that the three friends had had up to that moment. The dolphins were sweet and beautiful, with deep, dark eyes. The strangest thing was that Nyara was the first to touch the river dolphins, and the first to be able to swim next to them. Nanda and Kawe watched the three young people and thought about what the friends must be feeling, living so many deep emotions so far from their homes and their families. Hugo filmed everything. He was happy to do it and happy to be part of the group. A day that would mark the lives of each one of them was the day they visited an Amerindian village. They met the Katawaka people and found out that they earned their living by fishing. They had thought that there was only one group of indigenous people and that they were called Amerindians. They were a little embarrassed when they discovered that there were many, many different groups, and surprised that they had known so little about the indigenous people of Brazil. Gunnar was in love with the music and the rhythms of the Katawaka and enchanted by the sounds of the forest. Yoshi was really impressed when he learned how the Katawaka people educated their children. He and Nyara were interested that Katawaka children received the things that they would use in their jobs and at home when adults from their fathers, because fathers taught their children how to use them. That way, the children learned to respect people, animals, and nature. Fathers often take children fishing just so that they can watch. Later, the children play at fishing. That's how they learn to be fishermen. The children also learn by listening to stories told by older people. Katawaka children play a lot and live their childhood to the fullest. Childhood is very important to the Katawaka people, but the three friends were amazed at the way the Katawaka see fear. They don't see it as something bad. They see it as natural and as a way of getting over difficulties. Fear exists in life, and children learn to face life through children's play and games. The next day, the three friends flew over the rainforest. To see the rainforest from above is a rare opportunity. It was heartbreakingly beautiful. Yoshi didn't know if he should film what he could see, or take pictures, or just look down at the rainforest that filled his heart with happiness. He did a little bit of everything. When they returned to Manaus, his eyes filled with tears. He tried to hide them because, after all, he was shy and quiet, and perhaps not used to showing his feelings. From Manaus, they went on another unforgettable ride to find out everything they could about the Pororoca.
Can we really surf the Pororoca, Nanda?
Asked Gunnar. Sure you can, Gunnar. It's great. I think you guys are going to love it, but I could only get one board. I'm afraid you're going to have to take turns if you want to surf. There was silence on the boat. The boys didn't want to say anything, but they didn't know how to surf. Everyone in the team smiled. They knew the boys couldn't surf, and they knew neither of them wanted to say. Nyara was lost in her own world, the world of words, writing down everything she saw on the boat ride. She didn't seem to have heard Gunnar's question or Nanda's answer. Kawe explained all about the Pororoca. He told them that they can only see it in the Amazon, and that it happens when the waters of the Amazon River meet the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. He also told them that he thought it was one of the most beautiful natural events. He explained that Pororoca came from the Tupi word pororoca, meaning big boom. Kawa forgot to explain that the Pororoca happens when the sea level is high and the water comes into the river mouth, said Nanda. When the waters meet, it causes really large waves to form. You know, they can be up to 10 meters high and 5 or 6 wide. Waves can travel at speeds of 30-35 kilometers. It's totally crazy. But listen, when we get closer, keep your eyes and ears open. Our guide's probably going to repeat this again, but since I've been here before, I know what's going to happen. In the moments before it happens, all noise, all sound stop. The rainforest goes absolutely silent. That's the sign that you better look for a safe place so that your boat isn't damaged by the strong waves. Or it's a sign for you to get onto your surfboard ready for a really great wave. These days, the Pororoca is a real tourist attraction, and there's a really neat surfing championship where the winner is the one who stays on the wave the longest. It was impossible to describe everything that happened on that trip. The three young friends had never seen anything like it, or even dreamed that anything as amazing as the Pororoca existed.